Hi everyone, so today's Woman to Woman is going to be a slightly different Woman to Woman because today I wanted to chat to you about something that I don't think I've chatted on here before. I've chatted about on here before. And it's a topic that I find really interesting and something that I've kind of experienced a little bit recently, and the topic is to do with children. Now, I'm kind of at that stage at the moment where quite a few of my friends are starting to have babies, or trying to have babies and that kind of thing, but they aren't the majority, like the majority are not. And I think it's that weird kind of stage between the age of like 25 to 30 maybe, where it starts kind of gradually happening. I think 30s is probably where in most cases kind of like everybody's already kind of doing it, and it does vary from place to place. I've noticed a little bit as well, because I feel like, for example, since we've moved to Wales, I think people here have children a lot younger than they do where we were living, like in Sussex before. I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but I think it's definitely something that I've noticed. And I have been somebody who I always knew that I wanted to have children. Like, it was never even kind of a question in my mind ever since I was like, you know, old enough to kind of realise what that would necessarily mean. I knew that I did want to eventually have children, but it changes a lot, kind of, because I used to always feel like I definitely knew that I wanted to have a lot of children, and now I definitely know that I don't want to have a lot of children. But both those things are kind of irrelevant when I haven't had a child yet, so I don't actually know how I'm going to feel about it, and how hard I'm going to find it, and if I'm going to want to have maybe more than one child. Maybe I'll have one child and I'll find the whole thing such a breeze and I'll love the whole experience so much that I'll want to have like 5 children. I'm one of 5, and I love being like one of 5 and having like loads of siblings, but I look at my mum and I see how much sacrifice and how much work it takes to be a mother to that many children, and I don't know if that's something that I necessarily want. For me personally, and for kind of our lifestyle and all of that kind of thing, and financially as well, like, you know, there is a financial kind of element to it, which I think people don't seem to sort of address. But I was talking to a friend of mine recently who, her baby's due anytime soon. I think she's maybe a little bit older than me. I want to say that she's like maybe 27, 28 maybe, and it's her first child, and she wasn't planning on getting pregnant right now, but it kind of happened, and you know, they're happy about it, but they're married and everything. But she's very much struggling with the whole pregnancy, and she has very severe morning sickness and just all sorts of different like things going on, and she's really finding it hard to kind of be joyful about the whole pregnancy thing. And she said that, you know, she feels really guilty because she sees things on Instagram about other people who kind of are really enjoying their pregnancies and they're all glowing and perfect, and she doesn't feel like that, and she feels really insecure about her body, and she just is feeling really like yucky. And she was moaning about it the other day, and she said, you know, what am I even moaning about? I haven't even got to the giving birth bit. That bit's going to be even harder, isn't it? And I was kind of like, well, I don't know what answer to give you, because I've never done it before, so I don't really know either, but I'm sure it is really horrible. But then, like, people choose to do it over and over again, so you probably just kind of forget afterwards and it's probably fine. And she was just like, yeah, but you know, people are already saying to me, oh, are you going to have any more? And I'm like, let me have this one first. And so then we had this conversation where I sort of said, yeah, I can completely see how annoying that must be for you, because for me personally, I hate it when people ask me that all the time. And I kind of feel like it's a bit of a weird question to ask somebody that's in their kind of like late 20s. God, like late 20s. I can't even say like mid 20s anymore. Late 20s is just... I'm not saying like, oh, you know, getting old, whatever, it's a privilege, blah, 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 we all know that. But like, I still feel 15 on the inside. How am I gonna have a baby? I kill my plants. Every plant I ever have dies. How am I gonna do that? But yeah, we had this conversation where she was saying that, you know, she finds that it really puts kind of pressure on her when people ask that, and she really doesn't like it. And I said, lately people have been asking me it all the time. And I also think it's kind of weird timing for people to ask me it, because the people who are asking it generally are people who know that we're kind of in the midst of setting up our business. And I'm like, I would be insane to have a baby right when I'm trying to set up a business. Like, I wouldn't take that on. And we have been together for a really long time. Like, we've been together for ages. I can't even remember how long it's been that long. And we've always kind of had that conversation and said that we wanted to. And like, Paul would really love to have kids and stuff, and he kind of thinks that he'd like to have loads. And I'm like, no. One time he said to me, you know that movie with Steve Martin where they have 12 children? And I was like, be very careful where you're going with this. And he was just like, it looks like they have such a fun life. And I was like, you'd have to find yourself a different girlfriend or a different wife if you think I'm having 12 babies, because not gonna happen. No, absolutely not. Like, if you can do that, then you're absolutely superwoman. But I have no desire to do that. So yeah, it's because we've been together for a long time and we're not married. And again, that's one of those other things that people always ask you, don't they? And it's that kind of, where should you be in that kind of equation? And a lot of my friends actually are married. A fair few aren't, but a fair few are kind of recently married. And it's that stage now where people are starting to get married and that kind of thing. And I'd love to get married one day, but I'm not like, I went through a phase of feeling like, oh my God, like, why is everyone around me getting married? Does this mean that something's wrong with me? I went through a little phase of that maybe like 4 years ago, which was ridiculous, because like, I was comparing myself to people who were older than me anyway, so it was even sillier. And we always had something else going on. There was always like different issues that were kind of going on, and like financially and different things like that, and things that we were trying to do that kind of were impacting that. But I don't feel like that anymore about the marriage thing at all. I feel like, you know, yeah, maybe one day, but I'm not particularly bothered, which sounds horrible, but it's kind of more, we've been together for like 100 years anyway. It's not, what's it going to change? Like, I'll wear a nice dress and I'll have a nice ring. I would really like a nice ring. But I don't want the big fuss of the whole day. I think it looks really stressful, the whole planning thing. I'd like a really like low-key kind of wedding of literally just people who I really care about. And then you have that whole thing of, who do you offend? And I've got quite a lot of extended family that I'm not particularly close to, that seem to be under the impression that when I get married they will be coming. And I sort of want to be like, I see you like once a year and I don't even like you. Sounds awful. Yeah, no, it sounds really awful. But it's like, you know, families have their own like dramas and stuff, don't they? And it's not something that I kind of like feel particularly strongly about. And I never have done that whole big, you know, big white dress, big day, all about you. I don't want it all about me. Like, I don't want the pressure. And people seem to think that that's really weird. And I don't know, I'm just not bothered. And especially at the moment, like, my number one thing in life at the moment is the business. I want it to do so well. I want it to be great. I want to have like financial stability from it, obviously. I want to have a really great team. That's my goal. That's my number one thing. And the other things are just kind of like, yeah, we'll get there, but not right now. And people seem to kind of struggle with that, I think. And I think it's also one of those weird things where people always say this, like friends of mine who do have kids will say, you don't get it until you have one. It's kind of like you're not in the club until you do become a parent. And people probably never mean this to be derogatory, but I had somebody a while ago say to me that, oh, I wasn't a real person until I had my kids. And I was like, that's a really strange comment to make, because this woman had like a really great job and different things like that. And I was like, I know that like your kids are the most important thing to you and that you love them tremendously. I completely understand that. But there's so many other things about you other than the fact that you're a mum that are interesting, that I felt kind of sad that she felt like before that she wasn't kind of good enough. She wasn't, you know, a real person. Or they'll say things like, you know, oh, you don't know love until you have children. And it's just like, well, you do, but it's a different love, isn't it? I'm sure that when you have a child, you don't love anyone else like you love your child. I can completely picture that. And I'm somebody that I'm a very like caring person and very nurturing and very kind of like mothering and that kind of thing. So I know that I will be so in love and obsessed with my child if I'm lucky enough to have one. You know, that's the other thing that people don't seem to realise. And I remember somebody that I know saying to me that just after she got married, constantly people kept asking her when she was going to have a baby, and she knew that she couldn't, and that there was some sort of issue. And she said every time somebody asked me that, it was like another kind of knife to my heart, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to have one the conventional way anyway, and that I didn't want to have to explain it to, like, you know, some random person in my office that I don't know very well. And I thought that was a really interesting kind of thing, because when she said that, I thought, God, we all kind of ask people those kinds of questions. And like my mum, for example, she always asks people who already have kids, she always says to them, oh, when are you going to have another one? Are you going to have any more? And I'm always like, Mum, don't ask them that, because you don't know. Like, I know somebody as well who had a baby, and then they were trying to have the second baby for a really long time, and it was a really horrible, painful process with things that kept cropping up and things that kept happening, and it would just add more pressure on them when people ask that. And I know people mean well, and maybe one would argue that you don't need to be so sensitive about it, but I just think like showing a little bit of sensitivity sometimes is just kind of thinking of the bigger picture and showing kindness, and it's important. And yeah, I just kind of feel like it is something that you need to be a little bit aware of and just kind of think about. And like I said about the marriage thing, I had a message on Instagram recently from somebody who, she DM'd me, and she didn't want me to say her name, so I won't, but she wanted me to kind of share her message that she doesn't want to get married. She's been with her partner for years and years, and she's really happy, and she doesn't want to get married, but she feels like people are constantly judging her, like there's something wrong with her because she doesn't want to get married. And she asked me, like, I hope this isn't too private, but like, do you not want to get married? And I was like, I felt really sorry for her that she was in that situation, but then I kind of was like, I would like to eventually, yeah, mate, like, yeah, sure. I'm not like, you know, it's not top of my list right now. That's kind of more what it is. And same goes for the baby thing. Now, I am very aware that I don't want to kind of leave it for ages and ages and ages, and like, you know, leave it till when potentially, maybe, I don't want to say too late, because obviously nowadays there are so many different ways of like conceiving, but I find it odd. Like, somebody recently, we were talking about it, and I sort of said, no, not right now, blah blah blah, and she said, oh, well, you know, okay, but just as long as you make sure you don't leave it too late. And I was like, if you were saying that to me and I was like pushing 40, then I get it, but I'm not even 30 yet. Like, I have time, don't I? Like, I don't know, I thought it was a weird kind of thing to say, and I just, it's a conversation that kind of has been going on around me a lot recently. And the other thing is, people don't seem to understand that some people don't want to have children, and that is perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with that at all. And I think people are a lot more judgmental towards women who don't want to have children than men who don't want to have children. You have actors like, you know, like Leonardo DiCaprio, and I was going to say George Clooney, but then I remembered he does have children now, doesn't he? But like people like Leonardo DiCaprio, he never gets stick about it. He never gets asked if he's going to have a child, when he's going to have a child. Why is he not having a child? Why is he not married? But then actresses do get asked that, and I'm just like, I die every time I hear someone ask that, when they sort of say like, oh, but why don't you? Oh, you'll regret it. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure that that's not a decision that a person takes lightly, so maybe they won't. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with loving your job or loving your life, or just knowing that, no, not for me. Like, you shouldn't have a child if you don't really want one. It just baffles me. But anyway, I thought this was a really interesting topic to chat about. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Be respectful when you're expressing your opinions though, please, because it can be kind of a touchy subject and we don't want to upset anybody. So be respectful. And you know, I can't wait to like one day, hopefully, if I'm lucky enough, to join the mummy club. But right now, it's just not on top of my priorities. Bossing a restaurant is my #1 priority in life, over babies. But we'll see, you know, maybe one day soon, maybe in 6 months' time, maybe in a year, maybe in 3 years. I don't know. We'll see.